Hey, welcome back to Clearwater Jazz Holidays Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions. This is Steve Weinberger. I'm the CEO of the Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation, and it's a great day because we have Jeremy Carter with us as a continuation of our Conversation With series with saxophonist, composer, educator, Tucker Antell. Tucker, how you doing?
Oh, pretty great. Pretty great. Thanks for having me.
Oh man, it's our pleasure, and we're so excited to have you with us. Everybody will notice that they're muted for the courtesy of the session, but if there are questions, please feel free to use the chat feature, and we'll get those questions to Jeremy and to Tucker as we get going here. And like I said, this is a continuation of our Conversation With series as part of our Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions. We'd like to thank Blue Water Wealth Management at Steward Partners, Duke Energy, and also our friends at Marine Max Clearwater for helping to produce the studio at clearwaterjazz.com and the Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions podcast, available wherever you stream. After these sessions, the recorded segments get archived, and they're getting a lot of attention online with band directors, students, really students of all ages, and it's been really inspiring to us at the foundation to be able to create this resource and build this treasure for people to take advantage of and have these amazing individuals like Tucker and Jeremy involved. So very grateful for that. Jeremy Carter has been at the forefront of these Conversation With series. I'm going to go ahead and pin Jeremy real quick. What's up, Jeremy?
Hey. Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Yes, and he's one of the most sought after saxophonists in the Bay Area and around, really, and he's got a big heart for education and outreach, and is really special to a lot of Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation programs, including the History of Jazz Education Outreach program in the schools, the Young Lions Jazz Master Sessions traditional programming, where we bring jazz high school ensembles to a wonderful event with a shared experience with a lot of local professional musicians and university educators. And also we go into schools and work with band directors on a lot of things, from soloing to improvisation to band competition. And Jeremy's involved with a lot of that. And more recently, Jeremy Carter Rubber Band has been very visible as part of a music series that we have leading up to the big festival. It's called the Wanderlust Music Series. Jeremy performed several times last year as part of it. He's got a date already on the books in September with the Rubber Band, and is going to be back doing his thing. And I think he's also appearing as part of this cool Go-Go Beach Jam thing we got going on in May out as part of the Wanderlust series. So anytime we're with Jeremy, we're having fun. And Jeremy has also been part of the Young Lions virtual sessions, in addition to the Conversation With series, with instructional series on beginner, intermediate, and advanced tenor sax and some other fun stuff. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy and to Tucker, and it's just so great to have you guys with us. The stage is all yours.
Hello, everybody. How's it going? Good to thank everybody for tuning in. I see Lee out there, a few other familiar faces, and Tucker, man, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jeremy. It's good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you as well, man.
A little while.
It's been a little while.
Yeah.
Also thanks to the Clearwater Jazz Holiday and all the guys that helped to contribute to put this thing together, because like we were saying off camera a minute ago, just kind of out of necessity, this is like one of the ways that we have to, stay connected. And so it really has become an invaluable resource what the Clearwater Jazz Holiday is doing to keep kids and just, musicians of all levels engaged in the music on a regular basis. Because, during these times, it's easy to get distracted and get into other things. And, we're really trying to do some good work and keeping everybody focused and, to maintain their level of musicianship. So, thanks to everyone. And, this session is no different. When we had the opportunity to do this, I started, just brainstorming, thinking of some guys, and you were certainly one of the first that came came to mind. It's a real pleasure to be able to sit down with you and pick your brain a little bit.
Yeah,
Um,
likewise. Happy to be here. And again, thanks.
yeah, man. So you're a Florida guy. You went to school down
Yes.
here,
Yes, I did.
and then you went away to Boston and studied at NEC.
Yep. I studied at
So,
NEC.
so tell us a little bit about what you've been doing since you got out of school, projects, things like that.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I'm one of these people that this happens in the Boston area, right, where there's a bunch of really great music schools up here. You know, you have Berkeley, New England Conservatory, and Tufts, and Boston Conservatory, and then you get done with your schooling, and then you might go off somewhere else, or you might go back to your hometown, or you might move to Europe or New York or wherever. But
Right.
there's a certain amount of people like myself who just stayed because just said, "Man, I just love Boston. I love New England. I'm actually originally a New Englander, so I kind of felt like it was good to be near my family, and I just never wanted to leave because of the area, and Boston just has such a rich collection of music and musicians, and so yeah, it's been really great because there's so many great musicians to play with. There's so many projects that are constantly going on in various styles. I think one of the coolest parts about just post school and just getting involved with different musicians in the area is the different projects, from funk projects or jazz or Latin jazz or reggae. Oh my gosh, I mean the list goes on to all the different kinds of things that you can find yourself playing. Where maybe you said, oh, I'm really interested in I don't know, this kind of jazz or this kind of that or whatever, but I think for me, it's been really, really fulfilling to be able to, have a hand in all sorts of different kinds of styles. So that maybe on Monday you're playing big band jazz, and then on Tuesday you're playing, salsa, and then on Friday night you're playing in a like straight up like reggae, fusion group, and
Right.
And everything in between, And I think that's been really, really great for I don't know, for my musical soul, if you will.
Yeah.
Being able to be involved with all those different projects.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was going to talk to you about, like when you did the Grime Scene album and just different projects I see you out there doing. It's not just I guess we all kind of, as tenor sax players, started off in kind of the traditional jazz legacy, but like you went everywhere.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't turn my nose up at any kind of music. I mean, there's always like I even say this all the time in lessons when I'm talking to students. You can always learn something from a piece of music, no matter what genre somebody decided to call it. And it's there's chords, maybe there's no chords, there's rhythms, there's different things. And I find that it's actually helped my playing to being involved in all these different things, because if I was never exposed to the claves of salsa or playing rumba, I think maybe my conception about time when I'm playing swing would be, a little different, right? Having sort of a broader outlook musically can really help inform other kinds of styles of music that you might find yourself playing, or vice versa, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, so during the COVID pandemic that we've been experiencing, how have you been keeping yourself engaged?
Well, actually, it's been challenging for sure, but it's been fun to do. Remote projects have been kind of the way.
Right.
One of the ways where I've been on a couple and kind of organized a couple of different things where you got your session on Logic or whatever you use, and you send out the track, email it, and then somebody records it in their place. I mean, this is where I sit to do all that stuff, and somebody will say, hey, I'm going to do this tune, it's an original tune, I'll send you the track, and so there's still that kind of collaboration happening that way. And of course, one of the things that's been really great about technologies such as Zoom that we're using right now is that I've been able to continue to teach, and that's been one of the main ways to really keep engaged, and just working through whether it's transcriptions or exercises and talking through different pieces and discovering new material. I mean, it's one of the great things about being an educator, is that you do learn from your students as well, because they'll say, hey, I'm into this artist and I've never heard that recording before. Let's dive in. Let's explore this together. So that's been a really beneficial, thing about this as well.
So speaking of that, who are you checking out now? Who are you listening to?
Oh gosh, actually, it's kind of funny. And this is sort of like how it goes with, as I was talking about being an educator, your students are interested in this, and you kind of I like to cater to say, okay, let's explore that. I'm not going to force avant-garde stuff down your throat if what you're really into is bebop or whatever. And so I had this sort of I don't know if you call it like a run of students that at that particular time were really into some really old swing, like the original Lester Young, Johnny Hodges, Coleman Hawkins, these kinds of guys. And because of that, it forced me to kind of go back and sort of, it's sort of like there's so many different places to listen to music, and so many different albums across the rich history of recordings that we have, that, you maybe, forget about certain recordings that you hadn't heard in 10 years or something. And so going back and listening to Body and Soul again and playing through that solo and transcribing. I transcribed a Johnny Hodges solo of him doing his All of Me feature with Duke Ellington Band.
Right.
I've never heard that recording before. There's so many recordings. I mean, I'm not ashamed to say that I've heard every recording out there, but man, I was blown away. I just sort of got into this sort of listening to the, I don't know, I want to call it like the OG, just swing guys and some of their great ideas and the lyricism and the note choices. I found the note choices so interesting because it's like pre-bebop, train changes and Ornette Coleman. But the note choices are still just beautiful. They're like perfectly picked. It's like every note had its purpose, and also just the colors that a lot of these happen in a lot of these solos, like the note choices and scale degrees that they're using, are just, to my ears, in the way that I don't know what you want to call it, like a typical modern jazz solo. They were fresh to my ears, and I was like, man, not nobody, but I don't hear that color used that much anymore. Like that scale, that motion that they just did on the bridge of that tune. Like I don't hear that happening a lot, because of what's popular today, or at least maybe because of what I've been checking out. And so it's been really cool to dive back into that stuff and sort of go back to the original swing.
I mean, that's one thing I always appreciated about your playing. Because from my end of the horn, like, it seems like, just the overall sound concept, you have this traditional thing down, but then you're also, blazing on all this, harmonic stuff and just really, getting into what the hip cats are doing now, but then also, so to speak, but then also rooted in the tradition. I remember, you and Alex were just, probably your first or second year at NEC, and you guys came back, and
I remember that.
I used to go down and hang out with Buster Cooper all the time.
Oh yes, I remember those sessions.
Gig. I got done at like 9 o'clock, so I was down there like every Friday and Saturday night. It was like a home. So anyway, Alex, before he went to school, when he was in high school, he was studying with me.
Oh wow! I don't know if I quite remembered that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I just did a thing with Sam Dillon. He, because him and Sam hang out, and so they were talking about that. But I remember, he was studying with me, and then he went away and came back, and I was like, you guys were on this Lee Conant stuff and all these contrafact tunes. I'm like, okay,
definitely went hard into that phase. I tell you,
yeah, man,
definitely. And that's kind of what it's about. I mean, that's the thing that when I think about going to music school and what I learned, the thing that sticks with me is as being one of the best long-lasting lessons is just being exposed to different music, because there's music that I was exposed to, because you have to, because it's curriculum, or maybe it's just because, you're hanging out with some friends and what are you into? And, there could be people from all walks of life that you're now encountering that aren't just in your hometown. And you just get exposed to these different musics. I really don't know if I ever would have, discovered Lee Konitz and Warren Marsh and Lenny Tristano on my own. Maybe I would have, maybe years later, but that, you know, was in a class. It hit me like a ton of bricks, and I just latched on, and gained a lot from that, you know. And I almost view it as like, you know, phases or something, or periods, you know, where you really dive into something and you get all sorts of knowledge and influence from it. And then you can go, this is at least how I do it, where I'll really dive into one thing really hard. Right. And I'll almost just listen to nothing else but that for however long, maybe even like a couple of years, and just try to unearth every album, every solo that I can hear. And I'm just listening to it all the time and learning the tunes and learning the solos. And then, you know, maybe something else grabs my attention and it morphs into, now I'm obsessed with this. And it's sort of, that was a really influential learning experience that I'm always going to have and take with me into my playing. But then, you know, it kind of made me move on to something else. And this, it's not hierarchical. It's not as if, oh, you're at this level, then you're going to check this out. It's all this sea of music that's around us, and you can kind of just go. I feel like, you know, I tell people and students and all the time, you know, follow what really excites you. You know, what is, when it hits your ears, if you get that whoa, that's so awesome. I just, how do they do that? What is that? I want to learn more about that. Follow that instinct. Follow that urge, because that's the stuff that's really going to sink into your brain the most. You know, some people tried to, the other side of that coin is, you know, I took classes or talked to people about certain artists, and I tried listening to it because they told me it was great, but I don't know, it just didn't grab me, you know, and I just didn't grab me at all. And actually, a perfect example is Joe Henderson. Like, people would say, hey, you got to check out Joe Henderson. You got to check out Joe Henderson. And at 18, 19, 20, I would listen to that. But I don't know. I don't know. It's not grabbing me. I just want to listen to this Sonny solo again. And I really, this man, what Lee Konitz is playing on this contrafact, like, whoa, these note choices are crazy. And then out of nowhere, you know, you can't even describe how this happens, but years later, I must have been in my mid-20s, Joe Henderson just grabbed me. And I was obsessed. I mean, I'm telling you, I couldn't stop listening to. I had it in the car. I had it in my headphones. I was transcribing tons of stuff, learning a bunch of Joe, all the Joe albums, all the collaborations he did when he was with Horace or when he did stuff with Kenny Dorham. And it's like I unearthed this treasure that was there the whole time, but I just never realized how much of a treasure it was. But maybe that's because I just wasn't ready for it, you know. Right. But it came back around, and that ended up being a huge influence on me, especially during those couple of years when I was just deep into it, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I did a thing with did a master class with Chick Corea, or where he was, you know, teaching a master class, and he was saying the same thing you were saying, that you know, sometimes a lot of students, they go to university and they have their curriculum. You know, you're supposed to check out Ahmad Jamal, you're supposed to check out Joe Henderson, you're supposed to check out Sonny Rollins. And to some degree, that's great. There are some things that all those artists offer that fundamentally you should tap into to some degree.
But exposed to, yeah.
Exposed to, yes. But, you know, nobody can really tell you what initially drew you to music in the first place. Everybody reacts to certain things differently. It's just like anything else in life. Food, colors, you know, your favorite drink, or, you know, whatever it is. You know, there's preferences and proclivities to certain things. So yeah, absolutely, just definitely follow that natural instinct.
Yeah, follow your heart, follow your passion. I like to think of it as you know, one of the beautiful things about, you know, being able to be a musician or an artist is that you are coming up with, you know, putting together a personal style, a personal, you know, an individuality. And when I think about, you know, people, you know, myself diving into the things that I'm interested in, while, you know, maybe Alex or maybe someone else is diving into what they're into, I kind of look at it as we're all curating our own musical museums. You know, we're our own curators, where what will be hanging on the walls, you know, of my, you know, the sonic walls of my museum will be different, you know, than if you go and you walk into somebody else's museum. And that's why we sound different. Right. And that's a beautiful thing, you know. So I kind of view it like that, especially when I approach, you know, educating too. I really try to tap into what this, you know, students are really interested in and say, like, you know, if this is, what do you really like? Because if you then, you know, basically have a diet of that, you know, and you are just taking that in, that's going to come out, and you're going to be able to play exactly the stuff that really excites you in the first place, because it's exciting you for a reason.
Right.
But at the same time, like you're saying, I would have never been exposed to certain music that ended up really grabbing me if I hadn't been going to school or you know, interacting with people outside of myself. And certain things are part of sort of the, you know, history and important history and jazz canon of you know, musicians and albums, and it is, you know, important to be exposed to these things, whether you're ready for it or not. Just put it on the queue maybe or something, you know.
Right.
A prime
Right.
example is like, you know, Ornette Coleman can be a kind of a divisive thing for people, right? You know,
Right.
it's like, what's going on? There's no chords, there's no changes. He's got this kind of bright, brash sound. I don't like it, you know. Like that happens to a lot of students, and I can remember having those feelings, but put it in the queue, you know. Be aware that that was a movement in jazz, and that influenced a lot of other musicians, and that's a thing that's part of the history. And you never know. One day you might put, you know, Conception on, or you might put on Lonely Woman, and it might really grab you, and then you're off to the races.
Exactly. Of all the periods you had in terms of your personal development as a sax player, who's your guy? I mean,
Oh, don't make me do that.
Top three, come on.
Top
Yeah.
three. Well, I have to say Michael Brecker, because it's just that was the first grab. That was the thing that I was probably 13, and somebody laid 2 blocks from the edge on me, and I heard Delta City Blues, and I didn't even know that the tenor saxophone could do that. You know, what are these overtones? How is he bending it like that? And then the force and the technique and the sound. It was just, yeah. And so that was like the rest of all of high school, and you know, forevermore. You know, it's always been such an influence on me. A very huge, you know, very, very big, you know.
Me
Anyway,
too. I mean, you can't really tell them I'm playing, but me too.
Oh man,
I don't
there's
sound anything like him. But
I have a bit of a guilty conscience about it, because you know, I tend, when I'm teaching, I'll you know, someone will say, hey, you know, I want to do this thing with fourths, or do you have a good, you know, pattern to work on for this? And I find myself going, well, here's a Brecker one.
right.
Like, I need more sources than that, but there's so many good ones, because he's got so much technique, and there's so much you know, knowledge in it that it's just great for study and great for practice. And it was a really, really important, you know, thing for me. And another example of sort of the cycle of getting into stuff, you know, what I was paying attention to when I was listening to Brecker when I was 15 was not what I was paying attention to when I'm listening to Brecker at 25 or 30, you know. Right. You kind of come back, and it's almost like a cycle. And the same thing with the Ornette. You know, I just mentioned that over the, you know, especially over this past summer, you know, yeah, I've played Body and Soul by Coleman Hawkins before, you know, and dove into that. But doing it again this past summer, where I'm getting back into that, there's certain things that I'm just in awe of that I wasn't even noticing before, or at least wasn't appreciating, or I didn't, whether I noticed it or not, and I'm going, wow, what a really cool choice to do that. Wow, the way he stretched the rhythm there. Maybe, you know, 10 years ago when I did it, I wasn't really thinking about what his rhythmic conception was. I was more concentrated on how he's hitting the changes. Now I'm really appreciating how he stretched the rhythm and his dynamic range, you know, and things like that I was just, you know, not focused on, you know. So these things can come back too. But to get back to your question of top three, I mean, you know, it's kind of funny. You ever hear people say that? I've seen this like posts on Facebook and stuff. Whatever your favorite music was when you were 13 is going to be like your favorite music forever, or something. Like, it's something that like locks in whenever you're like at a certain age. I don't know. I hear that said, you know, just basically in like music listening or something. That's why, you know, people end up listening to that kind of music, and then the new generation comes up, and then what they're listening to is kind of like, oh, that's weird. I want to listen to my oldies, you know. Yeah. I don't know if that's a different discussion, but I wonder sometimes when I think about what I keep getting the most gravitated to, and my answers to these questions are the 3 guys I was checking out the most when I was 13 and 14. And so it was Brecker, Sonny Rollins, and Dexter Gordon. Those are like my 3 like on the top of the mountain kind of influences where I wouldn't be me if I hadn't checked them out and been so influenced by them. But at the same time, I wouldn't be me if I had never met Jerry Bergonzi and studied with him, and the immense amount that I learned and absorbed from his methods and just listening to him play every week, because, that's actually a really cool benefit of being in a town where, there's places to play and there's a bunch of great musicians. I used to go here while I was studying, and not as often now, but whenever I get the chance, go hear Jerry Bergonzi and George Garzone play every week. Like Alex and I would walk in the snow if we had to from the bus stop. We would go see those guys play every week, and I think that was even probably that should have been worth like credits in school, because I got almost more out of that than most of the other classes. You know what I mean? Like just seeing it happen right in front of you, and the things that you'd pick up on and you start to emulate, and then you go back to the practice room and get the horn out and just sort of try to kind of process what you just heard, and doing that every week. That was a really, really cool part of being at school and being able to be, go see live music and hear some really, really great legendary players.
Yeah, we have one of your other Bostonians coming in tomorrow, Mike Tucker.
Oh yeah,
I saw that thing that you guys did together, the two Tuckers.
Yes,
Tuckers, man. How did that come together?
We would both play in certain circumstances. We'd run into each other, in a big band gig or here and there, or maybe a different kind of gig. And we'd always have a great time. Maybe there'd be like this one tenor battle tune or something, and we just have such a great time. Or I remember going to Wally's once, in this jazz club where he was playing, and I sat in, and that was the first time we ever played together, and it was just immediate. Where, he'd throw something my way, I'd throw it right back, and we I don't know, maybe it's because we have a similar, not styles, but preferences and like what we like to listen to and what we learned and what we've transcribed, and our museums, so to speak, going back to that analogy.
Yeah.
Like we have sort of a similar background, I guess, and so we're kind of, I don't know, it felt like we were on the same wavelength, and so it was really fun to play with him and get into these back and forths and play tunes, and so it just became a thing where, man, we need to do something. And we've been talking about it for years. And I forget whether it was him or me or Ryan Parker, the pianist who runs the sort of the booking at the press room in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, who was the first place we played and did this together. And we've done it twice now. But also, I think it's also kind of funny. I mean, I'm half kidding, but it's also because we both have the name Tucker, and it's kind of unusual.
I know,
and we both play tenor saxophone. It's actually kind of been confusing for people in the Boston area because, people call him by his last name. They'll say, they won't say Mike. They'll say, "Hey, Tucker." Right. So then people have to go like,
which one?
Which one? And I've been called, and I talked to him about this on the phone too. Like this has happened to him too, where someone will go, "Man, I heard you killed it the other night at the whatever," and I go, "That wasn't me,"
Sorry.
That wasn't me. Oh, must have been the other Tucker, It's like, why, it's not enough that we both have a name that's not that common, but we played the same instrument too.
Right.
Like, come on. So that's kind of a funny thing that, at least makes the marquee look pretty cool. But, man, that was a ball. Those are some of the fondest memories of live performances that I have. And I'm glad that they were captured on video too.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping we get to do it again.
Yeah, they were a ton of fun to watch. I mean, because you guys are both playing at a really, really high level. Right, your vocabulary is similar, but the personalities are just so different. So and you guys both have really big ears. You know what I mean? So there were certain times, if you weren't looking at the screen, you wouldn't really know that there was trading happening. You know what I mean? It was like that.
Yeah.
That was that seamless.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think about that, talking about trading, I think about two different approaches that you can go, and one is the sort of pass it back and forth, hot potato compliment, and then the other one is the more be a foil to the other person and do that sort of like balance.
Right.
And I noticed that different players have different ways of going about that. You can listen to records, or you can hear players, trading, and it seems like they're not even listening to each other
Right.
because they're not playing any stuff back. But there is sort of this: you have an idea, and now I have a complementary idea, but I'm not copying you.
Right.
And I don't think in almost any kind of aspect of music there's a right and a wrong way to think about these things. But I tend to enjoy the hot potato thing a little bit, more, and I tend to go that way. Especially if we're sort of on that wavelength of sort of ideas, and he'll play a really cool idea, and I'm like, yeah, that's a really cool idea. Let me take it and go the other direction with it, and then I don't know. It's kind of exciting. I tend to go in that direction, especially with him. I mean, maybe there'll be other trading, places where I'll be trading with somebody, and I'll take a different approach, and it's you don't want to have the wrong vibe where like you just keep copying back the thing that they played. It's not like that, but
Right.
but in certain circumstances, and especially with Mike, I definitely feel like we really enjoy not copying, but he does like a certain motif, and I'll take that motif and I'll twist it, and then he'll twist it back, and then we'll keep kind of passing it back and forth, and
Right.
that in itself is kind of the fun part. It's like how many different ways can you play this thing, and it's like think quick. It's almost like playing a game, You got
No,
four.
seriously,
Yeah.
it's like it's genuinely like a musical conversation. Just like
Yeah.
speaking, using words, you don't say something to someone and their response is not, a parroted idea, like you guys are really conversing musically, which kind of brings me to my next thing. It's like more of a technical inquiry.
Mhm.
The idea of communication or the interaction that occurs on the bandstand, to me, is like the most important part of what we do. It's one thing. Obviously, you got to sit at home and you got to do your work on your own and be prepared to play the music. But once you get there, to be free of those things to a degree that you can actually just be listening and just be in the moment and just present with your fellow musicians. For students that are out there that are maybe like trying to learn, because like I always have this like a tree of concepts. Like when I'm teaching, I obviously address rhythm, harmony, melody, your sound, and dynamics, right? And
Yeah.
you can put communication within that. But when I sit down with the horn, like I very, very rarely will I just sit down and say like, okay, I'm gonna just work on rhythm. So for a student that's listening and they want to get closer to being a better communicator, what would you suggest?
You're totally right about that. That's where the magic happens. I mean, there was an interview that Joe Lovano did with Wayne Shorter that's on YouTube. If for anybody who's listening hasn't seen that, that's a really, really cool one to check out. And one of the things, what is jazz, and oops, somebody's unmuted. It was the thing that I always remembered and quote is that Wayne Shorter says jazz is the unknown, and that's part of it right there, because you when you're by yourself, you can play whatever you're going to play. When you go play and add another person into it, there's an unknown. What are they going to do? And that's where the magic happens,
Right.
because now it's not just up to you where the song goes. Now there's other people involved, and there's a lot of sort of, well, we could go right, we could go left, we could go another direction. And that's unfortunately one of the things that we're kind of being robbed of right now because of, COVID. I mean, I was talking about doing recordings, but I think that's something that we all miss and have even more of appreciation for, and wish to come back, is that sort of in the moment, hey, now we're going in this direction because we just had that as a sort of a joint decision, instead of just, oh, I want to do this now. I'm going to play this lick right here, and I'm going to do it in this way. But no, now I have to collaborate and play with you. So now maybe, I'm going to go this way. And that requires, flexibility and listening, of course. And I think, what I would say to students, and what I do say to students about that is, try your best to not just play with tunnel vision on, but be listening all around you as much as possible. You see musicians close their eyes a lot when they play, and there's there's, it's sort of an automatic thing, I think, from just like listening really hard or maybe just concentrating really hard. But one of the things I like to visualize is that you close your eyes so you can try to hear, for a sax player, the rhythm section behind you and just focus on all the sounds that are happening at once and just be completely immersed in it. And one of the there's actually a couple of ways to work on that too. One of the things that I like to do, some things that I do for working on improvisation are sort of improv primers or like games or something where you have a rule that's attached to what you have to do right now, which kind of focuses your creative attention or creative energies into a certain direction. And one of them is you are not allowed to play something until you hear someone else do it. You're not allowed to just be like, here I am, I'm playing this thing. But you have to just don't play a phrase until the drummer does something, da-da-da. Okay, cool, da-da-da, ba-da-da-ba-ba-da, okay, I'm off, Or the piano player goes, do-do-do-do-da, and then you can go, ba-da-do-ba-da, or something, right? You have to be reactive, and you have to get your idea, your starting place, not to mimic. I mean, that's one way to start practicing it, right? Is to see if you can kind of pick up on the idea and mimic it. But the idea is that you are not the sole source of the ideas and the musical motifs, but you get your ideas from other people. And I find that's a really fun way to play. Sometimes I feel like my solos over the course of a 3-hour gig or something, might be getting stale, kind of getting on, one note maybe. I'll switch over and I'll just go, you know what, I'm just going to completely rely on the rhythm section right now to feed me all the musical ideas. I'm not coming up with any more ideas. My ideas keep repeating themselves or something, so to speak. I go down this alley. I keep going down this alley. When I get to a 2-5 or something, or I get on a minor chord, I'm going right down here. No. The decision making is not mine anymore. It's the group's, and I'm going to be completely reactive to whatever is happening around me. And like I said, it could be a fill, it could be a snare drum hit, it could be the pianist's chord, color, rhythm, it could be the bass player going up or down or doing a triplet or something. But if you force yourself to rely on that instead of just constantly being in your own head about, okay, D minor 7, the 7th is a C natural, and then I got to do this thing, and I have this really cool lick that I practiced in 12 keys, and now I'm going to do it. Like, you are totally like blocking out everything else that's going around you, and you get into that sort of zone. So if you take yourself out of that and say, I'm not allowed to do that right now, I have to rely on everybody else. That's a really good primer for that, I find.
Right.
And it can be really cool to, you'll end up playing, and this is the beauty of it, right? This is why I say this is where the magic happens. You'll end up playing stuff that you maybe have never played before. Right. Because that is you reacting to other people. If you're sitting alone, in your practice room, or you're just in your own head, you're only going to play what you play. But if you are completely collaborative and flexible and listening and in the moment, you're going to play stuff that you would have never come up with on your own, because you couldn't have. They took those other minds, it took those other musicians, those other ideas. And if you combine your ideas, that's when the music can just take off and go to another level. Right.
And it's kind of special, the amount of energy that gets, produced throughout the band. You know what I mean? Like, you reacting to what they're doing. And if they're paying attention, they heard the communication, right?
Yep.
Now the door's open.
Oh yeah, when the door opens, it gets more fun for everybody. That's one of the things that I find I try to avoid is making it, to go the opposite way, because we're all striving to get into that really collaborative energy. Is the opposite of that is everybody's just kind of checked out, and they're just kind of thinking about their own thing, or they're not really engaged, or they're just sort of like checking their watch, in their mind,
Right.
And that's like the worst, it's such a missed opportunity for some real creative music and some real expressive stuff to happen. And so, really having your ears open, because, what I found is that if you are playing selfishly, if you decide, this is all about me right now, you're going to, the other players around you, they're probably going to start noticing that you're not really playing with them, and they're just there to be a Jamie Aebersold track, and they check out, and now all of a sudden it is a Jamie Aebersold track because everybody's checked out. Whereas if you play unselfishly and you say, yes, I'm willing to go with you on this idea. It's almost like, An analogy for that is like stand-up improv, like whose line is it anyway kind of thing.
Right.
Like I don't know where I saw this, or I think it was like in a funny show or something, but one of the rules of improv is that you can never say no or undo something, right? You have to go with whatever subject or material or thing has happened. So if someone in like, a verbal improv says, "Oh my gosh, there's a plane flying overhead." There is a plane flying overhead. That is now in the story. You can't just undo it.
Yeah.
And musically, it's the same thing. So what? If you really wanted there to be like a crescendo into the bridge, if the drummer starts to roll down, that's happening. That is what is happening right now, and you could fight it. But then the music's, now there's a disagreement or if you had your ears open and you heard that happen, and you have a spirit of collaboration and cooperation, you roll down with it. Now you're playing piano. Mezzo piano. Now you're playing soft. And then the whole band went another direction in a very, cooperative way. And that's, I've been on the giving and the receiving end of that, and it is definitely not fun if things are not aligning. And maybe in my younger years, I will admit to trying to fight it because I didn't want to go that way. And man, it felt terrible. It never works out where. If the musicians are kind of going this way and you're like, no, I want to go this way, music's going to suffer and it's not going to be cool. So just being completely open and cooperative, to what's going on around you, I think, and not selfish about it. I think that's when some real magic and everyone has a better time. If everyone's having a better time, the music's better. So I have some memories just popping into my mind about these kinds of things happening where like after the tune, everybody's almost just laughing, because it's like, man, what just happened? Like, where did we just go? Like, that was so unexpected for all of us and it worked so well. It felt great. That's the thing that we all aspire to having to be in the moment in playing music. I don't know if you guys have seen that new is it a Pixar movie, the Soul, that movie that came out? It's about jazz.
I haven't seen it yet, but I know what you're talking about.
They did a pretty good job of describing being in the zone. There's something about in the movie where they call being in the zone, and the main character is a jazz pianist, and they illustrate it by he gets into the zone and all of a sudden these things are swirling around and they kind of illustrate him going to another place or another plane or something. And yeah, that's being in the zone when you are immersed in the music so much that it is not about you, it's not about that person, it's about the collective ensemble and the music alone. And it's gonna take a mind of its own because it's a combination of the minds, not just you by yourself anymore.
Right. I always think about that concept as like I call it being in the Matrix.
Yeah.
You know that scene where he's like dodging the bullets and everything? I always think about that scene, like when you're, because you're like sometimes if the tune is cooking and the chord changes are flying and, some of them you let go by,
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to play on everyone.
Oh, no. Definitely not. Definitely not.
So,
Yeah.
That's, when things are feeling good and right, it's not just you, when the whole ensemble is cooking, it's really good for students to hear that, because I think a lot of times that just because of the nature of the craft, we spend so much time working on the technical aspects
By ourselves.
Yeah. And that we don't really practice communicating as much as we do everything else.
Yeah.
And so the whole purpose of doing that individual study is to not be so concerned with it in the moment.
Yeah, get your practicing done when you're by yourself and you have the privilege of stopping, thinking, doing it over and over and over again and working on it. But like Charlie Parker said, you practice, you learn the fundamentals, and then when you go play, you just forget all about that stuff. That stuff is done. Now it's time to be in the moment and play.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
I see you rocking the Boston Sax Shop gear.
Oh yeah, repping the Boston Sax Shop, absolutely.
So you're one of their guys now, yeah?
Yep, I'm one of the artists there. And before the shutdown happened, I was one of the teachers that was teaching on site at the shop. I love Jack. Jack Finucane is a mad scientist genius. The guy is incredible. Everything he comes out with, from the reeds to the neck. And
you playing his mouthpiece?
No, that just came out, but I did buy my mouthpiece there. It's a Dukoff Hollywood, BD Hollywood that I've been playing on for the last 4 or 5 years, maybe longer. I forget now. Yeah, he has an amazing. He has this room. I mean, my gosh, any sax player who's listening who's ever going to be anywhere near Boston, you want to be in this room. It's wall to wall saxophones of like all different kinds that you want to get your hands on. I mean, there are some real gems in there, and it's just really cool because it's like a triple tiered saxophones on the wall to wall, all the way around the room, and we're talking every era, every model that you could think of, and they're all great, and mouthpieces too. So that's where I found that mouthpiece. You know, one of those things, you go and try it in the shop, you got to buy it on the spot, and I've been playing on it ever since. But yeah, it's really, really great to have that, to have him here in Boston and have that resource, because
is that a metal Dukoff or rubber?
Yeah, it's a metal one. So
I know you were playing rubber for a long time.
Yeah, that was the. So when I recorded Grime Scene, that was one of the last things I did on a rubber piece. So what was that? Summer of 2017 or something, I want to say. And then shortly after that, like that's that fall, that's when I picked up this Bobby Dukoff BD Hollywood. So it's like one of the original ones from like the 40s.
Ooh.
With the Boston Sax Shop.
Yeah,
tooth guard there, yeah. And yeah, so I've been playing on this thing ever since. And just, yeah, I love it. I actually, feel really fortunate that I haven't had that mouthpiece bug in quite a long time. Thanks to that mouthpiece. Yeah, so I hope nothing happens to it, knock on wood.
Yeah, exactly. That's always my concern, man. The stuff that I'm playing on now, I'm just really weird. I'm not superstitious at all, but like I'm of the mind that whatever I'm playing on, God forbid something should happen to it, I want to be able to get another one.
Oh, exactly. I've actually looked for some backups to that. I mean, these are like one of a kind because they don't make them anymore. But there's been a lot of really great mouthpiece makers that come out with like, replicas of it or a sort of homage to it, and I've tried a few of them, and they weren't close enough for me to justify keeping that in the drawer. But I am kind of on the lookout because you never know, and. I remember that was one of the things I heard a story. It was like somebody's horn got stolen, and he was like, "Man, you can keep the horn. Just give me my mouthpiece." Like whoever took the horn, man, I won't say anything. Just drop the mouthpiece back off at my address, please. You can pawn the horn, because it is it's the lifelong search. But we could saxophone geek out for hours too.
Totally. You know what? Some guys, man, they get like. I don't know. You go online with the saxophone forums and things like that, man.
Oh yeah, everybody's got an opinion. Yeah. You can spend. I mean, we've all gone down the rabbit hole of hours of reading people's reviews, but the biggest takeaway that I've learned over the years is that every single post that you're reading is someone's subjective opinion. You don't really know what they're into. You don't really know what they're hearing, because this would actually be a kind of a fun experiment. I don't know. You could try this, but you could have somebody play like a recording or something, or play on a mouthpiece, but maybe just play a recording and have 10 people like describe what they heard and what they thought about it, and you'd have like 10 different descriptions. So what's the baseline? What's the control about this? Do you guys think this sounds bright, or you think this sounds dark? Well, what is bright to you? We have to keep using visual descriptors to be able to talk about tone, and it's a limited thing, language, to be able to describe what we're hearing, and it's a very subjective thing. So
absolutely.
Yeah, you can get led astray online, in more ways than one.
I mean, to me, it's amusing, but I mean, I don't really mess around. I have a lot of gear, but I don't really swap out. I'll pick a mouthpiece, I get a leg, and I'm playing on the same reeds that I've been playing on for a while now. Actually, I just where are these things at? I've been playing on Regatti Golds for a long time, and then
nice.
Yeah, I got a guy that has been ordering these straight from the factory in Paris, and so whenever he gets them, it's like, "Hey, Jeremy, you want a couple more boxes?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Have you gotten a chance to another plug? Have you gotten a chance to try the Boston Sax Shop reeds?
Yes.
Oh man,
Dude, yes.
they are.
Yeah.
If you like regattis, I was gonna say like those.
Yeah, they're regatta cane too, right?
Yeah, I think so. And you know, it's funny because you know I'm wearing the hat and I got the reeds. I honestly would not, you know, like I'm not being paid or something. Like I honestly wouldn't play. I'm not going to mess with my sound to
Right.
like for like some kind of endorsement something or whatever. Like I honestly only play on them because I like them more than Rico Jazz or Lavaz or Van Doren's or the other close second is Regattis. I mean I've tried it all, you know, as we all do. You get curious and it's honestly what I wouldn't be dishonest and like have a box here ready to show if I wasn't actually what's on the mouthpiece
That's what
right
you're
now.
playing,
You
yeah.
know, so and it's a very, you know, it's a very, you know, it's your own sound is it's a personal thing. You don't mess around with that for any other reason than you feel the most comfortable and you feel like it's going to give you the best chance to succeed. So
It's funny that you mention that because you go on the forums, most traditionalists, most sax players, they say you got to have a Mark Six. You, on the other hand, are not one of those people.
I fell into that trap though. You better believe I found a deal on a Mark 6 and I scooped it up because you're supposed to. You know? And they're great horns. They're also not created equal, right? I played on some Mark 6s that were like, they were kind of okay, you know.
Yeah.
I currently play on a Con 10M that I've been playing on for years now, and I played on other cons that I wouldn't want to go. I wouldn't want to play on a gig. I wouldn't want to have to play a gig on them. Let's put it that way. I would rather play a Yamaha than that con that this one over here. But this one over here, that's kind of a thing. You know, they're all different, especially the older they get. You know, you don't know what they've been through.
Right.
So ordering from like a place where they're going to ship it to you or something, and you can't really, unless you can send it back or something. But even then, it could get damaged. But you got to try it. You got to get to know it, and you got to, you know, have the stuff in your hands. You got to, you know, blow through it, feel what the resistance is like. What does it sound like to your ears? What's the hand position feel like for you?
To me, that's what I was going to say. That, like, you playing the Con 10M, that's a commitment to sound. I mean, to me.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
When I play them, oh man, I feel like I don't even know how to play the sax.
I'm glad you brought that up because it's exactly what happened to me. It was a commitment to sound. I was just out of curiosity, you know. I went and tried a Con 10M. I played one low D, and that was it. I was like, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. I didn't know a low D could be that big, you know. And I didn't even have to change my reed, you know, or my mouthpiece or whatever. And it was like, oh, I was done for. I was like, I'll be right back. I got to go to the bank, you know. But it was awkward. It felt really, really awkward, you know. And that's that
Pinky
same thing.
spatula.
Oh yeah, you know. So you know the pinky spatulas going the different direction. You know, some of the other things that people don't think about, because actually the pinky spatula thing is actually not that big of a deal. The front F key, you know, to use to this guy up here, that's actually quite a ways away.
Yeah.
Like if you could see that, like normally they have that little teardrop where you just sort of roll up on it. It's way up here. So if you want to play like a front F, the spread is actually pretty big, you know.
Yeah.
So there's some things, and it felt awkward, but honestly, I was just committed to the sound and just decided to tough it out. And I was amazed. I mean, I played some sessions, I played some gigs on it, and I could tell that it was slowing me down. I could tell, like, I would go for something, and it like, whoa, it didn't quite work out. You know, it feels so awkward. I was distracted by it, right? I was like sitting here trying to think of just being immersed in the music and think of the changes and think of what's the bass player doing, where are we going? But it felt like a foreign object in my hands that was distracting me. And so that's what I think people go off of whenever they first try different horns. But I was amazed to find that after about 2 weeks, between 2 weeks and a month, I forgot all about that. And it just feels completely natural. Completely natural. It feels more natural to me than any other horn. So much so that when I went and picked up my Mark 6, the Mark 6 felt weird.
Wow.
So it really is just like, you know, kind of what you're used to. You know, if you're used to driving a certain way, then somebody changes the seat settings in your car. You kind of know it until you sit in it longer, and then you kind of forget about it.
Right.
It's really like it was amazing because I always thought of the Mark 6 as just being, oh, this is just inherently better ergonomics, and maybe who's to say whether that could be objective, but the fact that going back to the Mark 6, that was slowing me down because it felt really weird. Like the the palm keys were really close together. The keys were like in a certain. It was eye opening that was the case, and so it really is just, that's what I always tell people. If you love the sound of a horn, just give it a chance. Don't just go, for this hour session that I'm having in the shop, it just feels awkward. See what you say after a month with it, because you might realize that that's all in the past. And I feel like I'm it's the most comfortable horn in the world now to me. I'll also say that even though it looks weird that you end up pushing these down instead of pulling them back, and I was worried about that the most, that was the quickest transition. Like my pinky totally forgot all about that as soon as that, I started getting used to this thing. And actually, I really dig that the cons, we're getting really technical sax here, but most Selmers have the B flat key. This key down here is just down here. Con wraps it around and goes over here, so it's over here. And a lot of people would say, well, that's kind of weird. Like, it's supposed to be 1, 2, 3, and then down. But this is 1, 2, 3 over or down, and I actually love that. I find that it's way quicker for me to get to that B flat by just rolling over here than dropping down and hitting that B flat. So you just kind of get used to it. And actually, another cool thing, the reason it's shaped like that is because the designers at Con said, put your pinky on the horn and try to draw a circle with your pinky, and it makes that shape.
Wow.
So they were thinking of some cool stuff back in the 30s.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I had a I had a balance action Selmer, like a 26,000.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I mean
those have such gorgeous sounds to them. Some of the best sounding horns.
But the day I bought it, the guy that I bought it from, he's like, now look, I'm not going to be working on this thing, so don't take it out playing it everywhere. I'm like, well, what's the point? He's like, they're just notorious for maintenance.
Yeah, that can be another thing, right? Or just having a horn that it's like it's so expensive and so mint that you're just afraid to even touch it.
Right. That was another thing. I used to take it out and if I'm doing a gig, I start sweating. I'm like, oh no, you know what I mean? I don't want to sweat on it. But that was another thing with the left hand. Like that horn was made in 1936. So the ergos, what they were doing was just not the same as they are today. Like the focus and attention on ergonomics.
Yeah, I mean, they made so many advances in so many of the things that they do.
So that space between the B and the bis, like there was a gap there, just like your front F4. It just, I mean, I couldn't get used to it. I played it, I don't know. I was going back and forth for a few months, and I couldn't really get into it. Eventually, I sold the horn, but I wish I would have kept it.
There's definitely certain things you can get used to, and certain things that I'm not saying that you're gonna get used to whatever. Like for me, I'm a primarily B flat bis player, to the point where if somebody took my side B flat away, I actually wouldn't miss it. It wouldn't really affect me. So if I play a horn, and this has happened, I've tried some, before the Con. This Town M is from 1935, but prior to that, it was the New Wonder. And that spacing between the B and the B flat bis is a lot bigger. I can't do that. I need that B flat bis to be right there. I don't care if I'm going to maybe I'll get used to it, but I can't, you're not going to get used to the fact that it is really, really far away.
It's almost impossible to span that gap. But the thing was, right after I got rid of that horn, I saw that Oleg makes a little adjustment to cover that gap. He makes a little...
there's all sorts of cool stuff you can do with little retrofits and stuff.
Yeah.
I noticed that. Yeah, there's always a way. It seems like there's a. Although it's funny. I'm actually glad that I haven't done some of those things. I know that some people put all sorts of key risers and things like that, and I just found that I didn't want to mess with it and just kind of get used to the horn as it was. But yeah, there's definitely things you could do. Some people move the thumb rest. Some people move the ring where the neck strap attaches to. Some people get the key risers. Everybody's hands are different, So get what you got to do. You were mentioning, sweating on a horn. I don't know if I could get permission to share the screen, but I have a picture I wanted to show you regarding that. I posted on Instagram a few years back.
Sure.
There we go. So this is the Con 10M that I'm playing on right now. Left is when I bought it. Right is right now.
Wow. Oh.
Talk about sweat and what it'll do to lacquer. As soon as you said that, I was like, oh, I got to show you this picture.
Wow.
I mean, imagine if, this was your...
How long has that been?
4 or 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah. This is my player's horn. I mean, I just play on it. I don't care if I sweat on it. I play outside sometimes. I got to play on a gig that's maybe near the water. What are you going to do? Like cry over your, so that's just me though. I mean, but man, I wouldn't be shrugging it off if this was some kind of mint $10,000, mint like balanced action kind of thing. But, this was the horn that I want to have as my axe, this is my, and I kind of dig the horn look anyways, but I just, I remember scrolling through some pictures, one day and saw a picture that I'd taken of it that's the day I was trying it out. And I went, oh my gosh, it's worn that much. You don't notice, it over the days, but so then I decided to find a rug that looked exactly like that and get that picture though. But yeah, if you don't want it to happen, you better treat it with kid gloves, literally, and wipe off all the sweat. And
yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. I saw you got the little G sharp trill on there too on the right hand.
Yes.
So that's functional?
That's so that key that Jeremy's talking about is right there. And that's what cons have on them. Even my, I have a con alto on them, but I found it to be really, really pointless. And when you're playing an F,
wait a minute, you took it off.
I took it off.
Oh, I didn't even notice it. I was looking at the left one. Wow.
Yeah. So I found it to be completely pointless, and it would get in my way a little bit. So I just took it off. It's in my drawer.
Yeah. That's crazy. I didn't even notice the one on the right.
But like for my my alto still has it. I don't find that it gets in my way too much. Or I think it's one of the things about it is it's connected to more things. Yeah, it's connected on the tenor. It was a single key by itself, so I could take the key off. This key is in line with other keys, so if I took it off, it would mess everything up. So they were experimenting with all sorts of stuff, I
always thought that was really interesting. I had a couple of those old horns. Yeah. I was like, I would use it just because, like, they have a key.
Well, yeah, they have a key for it.
Like,
yeah.
Hey, why not?
Why not? I guess I'll trill. I never found that my left pinky had trouble with trilling a G sharp, but now that you had mentioned it, why don't I just give this a shot? Yeah. So that's kind of a cool one. But yeah, no, I love my horn, and but it's, as you grow, I mean, we're talking if students are listening, you as you grow and you get into different styles of music, you get into different sounds. What my dream horn was when I was 16, and I bought my first like pro horn. In my mind, it was going to be the last horn I'd ever buy. I mean, I was kidding myself because it was perfect for me at the time, but years later, it just wasn't meeting the criteria that my ears were hearing, and just being curious and trying other things. Then I arrived at through the journey at this horn, and I feel like this is the one that gives me everything that I want it to do. Yeah. But it's also not something that is going to fix, if I'm getting into a little bit of like a teachery mode, isn't going to fix, whatever you're trying to work on, unless it's because it's damaged or something. I mean, obviously being in good repair is good, but I still sound like me on a Selmer. I still sound like me on any other horn. The details we talk about when we talk about like some of these, the fullness of this or the darkness of this or all these kind of things, that's like the last little percent off of what you are bringing to the table from your air and from your embouchure and all that stuff. And so, I could swap horns with somebody that has a $200 horn, and it's not as if all of a sudden, oh, now you sound like me, or you sound like whoever was playing that horn. It's like, no, you're going to sound like you. It's a hollow cone tube made out of metal with holes in it, and the sound's coming from you. Just certain tubes have certain different characteristics is all. Yeah. So Yeah, because you know, I remember being a student and feeling like if only I had that, then I would sound the way I want to sound. You know,
Right.
and I think there's that can be it can stop people from just forgetting about all that and just work on your sound and practice. You know,
Just play.
play,
Just play
play, play,
ballads.
play, play, play. Yeah.
You know, they always say play long tones. I
Hmm.
mean, which is kind of, I mean, whatever. I would just suggest playing ballads. You're
Yeah.
gonna play long tones in the
Yeah.
ballad.
I never, you know, like I'm ashamed, not ashamed. You know, like sorry, not sorry, kind of
Right.
to say that I never really practiced long tones. I was more doing what you're talking about. I was playing a long sound, but trying to shape it to sound like what I wanted it to sound like.
Right.
And I think, you know, that is what you're supposed to do with long tones. But as a student, when I'd hear someone say, oh, long tones, it just feels a lot more mindless because you're just like playing one note that doesn't have a musical sort of like intention to go somewhere or part of a melody or an expressive thing. What you're supposed to be doing is playing the note and really concentrating on the sound and what you're doing to make that sound and relaxing your face and relaxing your shoulders and relaxing your airstream and your all that stuff and just working on everything without distracting yourself with fingerings and music. But, you know, I found that I was doing that by, you know, playing melodies, playing ballads like you were talking about, or just playing one lick over and over and over again and trying to adjust things so that it would sound the way I wanted it to sound. I wasn't
Right.
playing one note to do that, but I was still working on sound.
So harmonically, like when you want to step out a little bit, like what would you? I know it's kind of a broad question, and it would have to be contextual. Say we're blowing over like
Oh gosh.
yeah. Okay, like a tune like you mentioned Joe Henderson, like Inner Urge.
Oh yeah.
So you have all these sharp 11 chords.
Oh man. So like how to get out?
Yeah, right. On a tune that is already kind of like
Yeah.
dense and nondescript, you know, in the way that last little section, you know what I mean? That other than that,
That last little section is so fast moving and it's already harmonically complex enough. My approach is just to try to hit those changes in the most interesting way possible, or just completely ignore them and play some shapes and Ornette Coleman it a little bit. It's just, yeah, I'm not looking to play out there because those changes are so interesting. But there are in the beginning part of that tune, it's got those, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 chords that are four measures long. So there's some opportunity there. I mean, gosh, and the methods are endless. I mean, we could do a masterclass just on playing out because I've you know, I was really drawn to that and interested in like how it is that people were able to do that without having like, how are you playing the wrong notes? But they sound so right, that kind of thing.
yeah,
And there are so many different approaches to it. As I've discovered, and maybe, you know, this artist tends to employ this method. You know, George Garzone's got his method where with the triadic concept. You know, you could be doing superimposed chords with your own chord progression. You could kind of maybe like Coltrane change it, where you're actually you're saying this is what the chord is, but I'm going to take a detour and play over these chords, which I'm making up in my head, or I've predetermined that I'm going to substitute. Or, you know, even just taking different kinds of scale structures, like, you know, if you're playing on the you know, the F major sharp 11 chord, you could say, okay, well, I could combine that and make that like an F triad and a G triad, or maybe I'm going to move that around and maybe make it like an A triad and a C sharp triad and get that sort of major thirds kind of sound happening. Some of the notes are in the chord, some of them are outside of the chord, so I'm kind of flirting with both. You could be doing lots of different like chromatic motions, sequences. Sequences can kind of take you that way. I would almost call that maybe I'm simplifying it way too much, but to say that it's
no,
like
yeah, I know what you're saying. Like
the Brecker
harmonic
method.
cells.
Yeah, like the Brecker method, to just say I'm going to take a cell and I'm just going to kind of move it around in certain ways, half steps, whole steps, minor thirds, major thirds. So you could do cell methods. You could go randomized, serialistic, sort of Garzone thing. You could be doing superimposed chords. You could take you know, basically like broken down hexatonic or pentatonic scales that kind of give you a certain tonality that's going to work. There's so many different ways, and honestly, it's fun to kind of explore all of them. I would say that having a couple of different things that you have in your bag of tools that you can go to makes it so that when you get to chorus 4, that F major comes back and you don't play the same exact thing you did the last time. I think that's one of the important things, that maybe the first time I'm playing straight up F major 7 and I'm going up and down the arpeggio, I'm playing some beboppity lines. Maybe the next time I get there, though, I'm going to be doing some kind of triadic arpeggiation where I'm kind of taking it out and going down in whole steps. But of course, it's not that predetermined, too. I'll just kind of land on a note and it just kind of takes you there. And of course, depends on maybe what the rest of the band is doing. Maybe I had it. Maybe you get an idea. Then the drummer goes da ga ga ga, and then all of a sudden, instead of going da dooby da bo dooby da bo da, you go ba ba dooby da bo ga 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 bo dooby ga 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 bo da ba, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, that I didn't know that was going to happen, but it just happened. So not to be unaware of the conversation we had earlier about that stuff.
Yeah, man.
Oh gosh, and I actually think that a better example of like, because Inner Urge is kind of loaded, right? It's got a lot of stuff in there. I find that it's there's much more opportunities for that kind of thinking about playing out on like rhythm changes or blues.
Yeah, maybe that would be like a better example. Like more,
I look at rhythm changes and blues as being a blank canvas. It's like if you're playing a B flat blues, you're in B flat, or B flat rhythm changes, I should say. Like if you're in rhythm changes in the A section, you're in B flat, and you can go anywhere you want to go. It is so fun. And it's basically like, there's an 8-bar phrase, and there's an arc that goes from point A to point B, but you could take whatever route you want to get there. And I think that's kind of the fun of it, is that, you're and then you made it. So you could do a left over here and go play some other changes that are going to get there eventually, or maybe not, but it's all about the phrasing at that point, and about just sort of committing to it. And oh gosh, there's so many different for people that have never done it before, or don't even like really know like what the heck we're even talking about. I think one of the best ways to start out with doing this stuff is like, it's like the trick that immediately makes this happen is just shift a half step away for a little bit and see how that treats you. And I think part of getting used to playing out is getting used to the sound of how dissonant it really is. It's out because it's so dissonant. It's got so much more crunch than we're used to hearing, and our ears are not accustomed to that as much. Another great thing about music school, I mean, you study like Schoenberg and all these, really advanced classical music and advanced jazz, and you go check out, Cecil Taylor, and your ears kind of get more used to kind of grappling with these crazy sounds. Anyway, getting used to the sound. The first time you play a C sharp over a C chord, it's going to be like, whoa, that sounds bad.
Right.
Bad, right? It's not really. It's just really, really dissonant. And you can use that to your advantage. There's the color wheel of all the notes that we have, and they all have a certain sound and a certain dissonance and consonance in any context. And some of them might be called like, avoid tones, but that's just because maybe we don't want that dissonance right now, but maybe you do want that dissonance, and maybe you can use it to your advantage and to create the kind of contrast that you want for your piece. And the reason that I mentioned a half step away is because it's one of the quickest ways to be playing all the wrong notes at once.
Right.
Wrong notes, right?
You can hear those intervals.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the half step occurs at every chord tone.
Yeah. It's you go a fourth or a fifth away, you're only changing one note in that scale. You go a couple away, you're only changing a couple notes. You go a half step away, you are changing all but one note of that scale. Yeah. And it's also kind of easy to conceptualize because you don't have to do like a big calculation about where you're going. If you're on C, if you know your chromatic scale, if you're on C, go up a half step, C sharp, okay, cool. And then you only have to come right back down, and then you're there again. And there's tons of examples of this in people that it's not like a cheap trick or something. I don't know how I described it earlier, but it's a great crash course in starting to get used to the feeling and trying it out. I mean, we're talking Sonny Rollins was doing this in the battle that he did with John Coltrane on Tender Madness. Just a quick little shift up. You're playing in C, C sharp, C, right? Quick. Michael Brecker's solo on Delta City Blues. He straight up started the solo in C sharp. His C sharp, it's supposed to be C blues. He's playing a C sharp major scale. Yeah, exactly. And he shifts up a half step so many times in that solo, and you're thinking like, where's Ollie? What's happening? He's a half step off. For a lot of that, it works so great to get that dissonance, right away without even having to do a heck of a lot of other like sort of harmonic exploration about what else is possible, or going through like the Slonimsky book back here in the background or whatever. There's so many different ways, and it's all just about accessing different colors. Every scale is a color.
You dig into that big book quite a bit?
A bit. I wouldn't say that I've, I didn't Coltrane it, but it's definitely some really cool stuff that you can get out of there.
That's the repository, right? The repository of scales and melodic patterns. Is that the one?
Yeah, the thesaurus.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about it too is that it really is a thesaurus. That's one thing I've noticed. This is the Slonimsky book of thesaurus of scales.
I have it. Mine has a slightly different cover.
And it really isn't a method book to go page 2, now turn over and now practice page 3. It's like literally you opened up a thesaurus or a dictionary. It has everything, every possibility.
Right.
And so I like flipping through it to look at the possibilities and playing through some of them. And when I get to one that catches my ear or feels like it's awkward for my hands, awkward for the fingers to pull off without thinking about it extra hard, I realize maybe this is an avenue that I can't go down because my technique is limiting me in that way. And now the book has helped me discover a weakness that I can then work on. But mostly it's just sort of, like a dictionary. Look up some new words you want to use in a sentence.
Right.
We're all communicating, licks or words and phrases or sentences. And, if we want to be well-spoken, maybe you learn a word a day or something. Well, you can go into the dictionary there, the thesaurus, and come up with some new words.
Absolutely. Steve, cool. I thought I saw somebody chiming in. Do we have some questions from somebody out there?
Yeah. Well, I've got a question, and I see that Don also has a question for Tucker. Let me go first, Tucker. I read from a little bit from your website about how meaningful it was to you to play with more seasoned players at a pretty young age, and we work really hard to facilitate those opportunities across our platform or various platforms for young musicians. How could you comment a little bit about how did those opportunities present themselves to you at a young age? Did you create opportunities for yourself? And what should students be looking to do in that regard as a recommendation from you?
It is super important. I didn't even realize how important it was at the time. I just wanted to play, and I think that's the key of what helped facilitate that in answering your question is, just putting yourself out there, leaving the house, searching it out, and being willing to play and take risks and just go out there and do it. For me, it was just sort of, this natural progression that happened. It's funny. I think it was I was playing in like my church band, and the saxophone. One of the saxophone players had his own big band. His name was Bob Zimmerman, and so then he said, "Hey, why don't you come play in the big band?" And I played in the big band, and then the drummer said, "Oh, we do this jam session at the American Legion on Sundays, in Bradenton." And then I went there, and then I met all these other people, and then it really is part of and this is important whether you're young or you're in school or you're out of school, is that networking, that sort of one thing leads to another kind of opportunities. I would have never known about the jam session if I didn't decide, hey, I want to play my saxophone here, and then this guy's inviting me, I'm going to go to do that, and just kind of be open to every possibility in those ways. And it was super helpful in the subtle ways that I wasn't even thinking of. We're talking about all these technical things. We're talking about, you know, maybe you can talk about, half steps and whole steps and all these kinds of things, but the little things about, how to be on a stage, calling tunes, the order of soloists, where do you stand, all these little interactions, all these little cues, all these sort of band etiquette sort of things, repertoire, they were calling tunes on me that I had never even heard of before, and I was forced to learn them real quick, or otherwise I was in the swamp, musically I was lost. I had to learn on my feet, learning by ear, being very attentive about what's going on, and just learning, on the job. It's on the job experience kind of and I was lucky to be able to do that every week, and it was fun. It was really cool to be able to get real live playing for other humans experience at that age. And so I think I still think that it was one of the most valuable things as part of my musical journey and early education, whether I knew it at the time or not. So, I mean, I think I wish everybody could, and I encourage everybody to try to find something like that, because if I was just confined to my bedroom practicing and that was the only, and maybe school jazz band, if that was the only thing that I ever did, gosh, I would have not learned so many of these things that I sort of learned either explicitly or implicitly. So it's super important. I think it's part of the tradition too, right? A lot of these musicians that we read about in the history books, someone took them under their wing, or they went to sessions, or they would go down to the clubs and they'd sneak in, or all these stories that you see in the autobiographies and things about. We used to go down and hear Count Basie Band, and we'd hear him, and then one day that guy was sick or something, or didn't show up, so then I had to sit in, and I was only so young and I was barely hanging on, and I was scared. And or like when Miles joined the band in St. Louis, he talks about how he was, one of the other trumpet players was helping him along, and that, so that's kind of a tradition of almost like apprenticeship thing going on, where you have somebody that is modeling how to do it, how it's done, guiding you, whether it's an individual or the entire band or a group of people. It's a team sport.
Yeah, no, so important, and thank you for sharing that. What would you say to some of the students that they're just so intimidated to make that first step? Are there some general things they can be working on that you would suggest? Look, you need to at least be here before you do that. What would you add to give them that bit of confidence to take the leap of putting themselves out there with more established players?
Well, have some fundamentals down. I mean, that's why, all the band directors, all your private teachers, always talk about the scales, learn your scales, and everybody talks about, sharps and flats and all these kinds of things. Those fundamentals are really, really important, and it doesn't matter what part of the country you're in studying with whoever, they're going to mention, G major scales, got an F sharp, you got to know that. C major scales. It's not just because, this is school and we have to memorize this stuff. It's a super, super important fundamental to know these tools, and if you have those tools, you'll be much better prepared to be able to enter situations that maybe you're not used to. So having a certain familiarity with as many of the scales that you can, and having a certain amount of tunes that you're starting to learn, starting to build up a repertoire. I think that's another thing that maybe is I have found that it can lack in certain educational spheres of really learning tunes, not just having sheet music put in front of you, you read it, and then you read the next one. Reading is super, super important, but really important as well is what I'm trying to emphasize is memorizing tunes. If I didn't know at least Take the A Train and Satin Doll, I probably wouldn't even have been able to get up there and actually play, or I would have gone up there with a real book and I would have my nose in the book and not been able to really immerse in what was going around me and look up and see that like the trumpet player was signaling for me to, hey, take a solo, or don't stand there. You're standing in front of the drummer. It's his solo. You're standing right in front of him. If I was just staring at my book, I would be completely unaware of all that stuff. And it really started me with, because I wanted to keep participating in more and more of the jam. Oh, now I have to learn all of me. Oh man, what is this tune? Do Nothing Till You Hear From Me. What's that? You know, all these tunes started coming up, and the impetus to learn them was because of the session, but then I grew so much because I knew tunes. And so building your repertoire, getting back to your question, is a big one. You know, decide, hey, I'm gonna really try to memorize this tune. I'm gonna put it on YouTube. I'm gonna put it on Spotify. I'm gonna put it on with a record, and I'm gonna try to see if I can play along with this melody without looking at any music. Maybe you can always slow it down at first, you know, to get there. Being able to play that melody, and yeah, those are some of the beginning steps. And as far as being intimidated, you know, what I always like to say is, you know, it's like, it's a non-contact sport. It's music. Like, nothing bad is going to happen. You know, you're not going to get hurt. You know, there's nothing. I know it's intimidating, like you don't want to embarrass yourself, but everybody learns and everybody starts at where they are. And maybe there's some jerks out there that might actually ridicule you or you know, be mean, but that's on them, and that would show that they're pretty terrible people, because I haven't seen that, fortunately, where, you know, if somebody's they're in the early stages of their you know, journey in music, that's just where you are at that moment. And we've all been there. You know, there was a time when I didn't even know what a C minor chord was. I didn't even know what the symbols meant. I was just trying to play notes that sounded good. Nobody said, you suck, you know, like, you know, it was sort of like, that's where I was at the time. And, you know, everybody was there at one point. And the worst thing that's going to happen is, actually, the worst thing that's going to happen is you don't learn anything from it. That would be the worst thing. But you're definitely not going to, you know, instantly combust or something, or someone's going to throw something at you. We're not in those days where people are going to be throwing stuff at musicians or something. So, you know, just get out there and do it. Don't be scared that, because it's all part of the process, you know.
Yeah, it's great feedback. Don asks how old you were. Like, how old were you when you played at the Bradenton American Legion jam sessions?
Oh, yes. Oh, man, those times. Ruby Vincent. Gosh, I'm trying to think. This was around the time when I was talking about the Bob Zimmerman band in Sarasota. So I must have been about 13 or 14, yeah. 13.
What do you remember about your life at that age with music?
Oh gosh, all I wanted to do. I was just music. I'd go play in the church band on Sunday morning, and then I'd go straight to the jam session from 2 to 5 in Bradenton, and then after that there was a gig. Tom, what's his name? I know it was Tom. I'm blanking on the last name. That's terrible.
Drummer?
No, the keyboardist, and Larry Trott played bass. And they were playing at a place down Route 41 is the road. I'm remembering all these Florida stuff that I thought about, and down Route 41, and I'd head over there because they had a 7 to 9 gig. So it was just like Sundays would come and I'd be playing all day because I would just seek it out. They would, you know, I'd say, well, what's going on where, you know? And fortunately, I was, you know, fortunate that Sarasota and the West Coast and Bradenton and Clearwater, that has all that, so much music happening. It was really, really, really cool. I didn't realize that wasn't the norm, that you know, you could have live music every weekend in different places. I mean, it gets to the point, like, especially like during the season, right? We have flip seasons, of course, as I've come to know, you know, in Florida, where, of course, the gigs all pop up this time of year, where up here it's freezing out and there's no gigs. And then in the summer, there's all sorts of concert series out here up in New England, and you can play outdoors, and there's stuff on the Cape and all this stuff. And then it's not so much in Florida, so it's kind of a flip. I should almost just sort of go back and forth and just start my snowbirding early, to get to play year round. But anyway, it got to the point, especially in the winter, when you'd have options. It was like, oh, I don't know which place I'm going to go. Where am I going to go tonight? You know, am I going to go hang? Am I going to go? Play with these guys. I'm going to play with these guys, you know. I was taking some lessons with Perry Childs, and I would always try to figure out where he was playing, you know, and he'd be playing somewhere in the square, not in St. Armand's Circle. Maybe there was a place there too, but it's that main square area near the water, near Siesta, but it's like the main street of Sarasota. You know, this is getting on like 12 years ago. I haven't been.
But it sounds like you were in it, man. You were in it at a young age.
Idea. That's the idea. You just gotta go. You gotta go for it. And you know, fortunately, my parents and my grandparents would drive me wherever I needed to be and sit through all these jazz concerts. They were learning the jazz right along with me because it's, you know, education by exposure too, right?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, you know, I'm going to turn it back over to Jeremy in a second for some close us out with some things. I know he probably has a few. We could sit here talking to you forever.
Yeah, likewise. There's,
but
you know, breeze, you know,
yeah, no,
music.
We appreciate you going the extra mile with us, and spending this time with us. And I think it's going to prove to be a really nice addition to our Young Lions virtual sessions online.
Awesome.
I would encourage everybody participating now or watching and listening after the fact to keep up with us at clearwaterjazz.com at the education and outreach section. When you land there, there's a schedule of upcoming sessions, and we add to them every week. And we've got already had some amazing ones this week, including today's session. We've got Sean Martin joining us next week with a conversation with John O'Leary and Sean Martin, which we're really excited about on the 3rd. And there's some really cool stuff being added in the near future with Brandon Robertson down at Florida Gulf Coast University in Fort Myers, and a bunch of other really, really dynamic personalities and players. So please keep up with us. We hope you're finding good value in them. And on behalf of the foundation, Tucker, we really appreciate your time and comments today. And Jeremy, thanks for everything you mean to us and do for us. It's just wonderful. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Jeremy.
Yeah. Just to close this out, man. Thanks again, Tucker, for everybody that's listening or that will tune in later. Definitely, you know, it sucks when you get a chance to play, but if you get a chance, definitely check out Tucker's music. The guy is just wildly imaginative, and his tenor sound, which is, you know, is a special talent. So if you haven't heard him, you haven't had the chance to check him out, definitely check him out. This is a serious cat.
Okay, thanks so much, Jeremy, and everybody. Really unique opportunity to tune in and go back to the Florida roots, and just just a really honored to be here, and it's really great to hear that, you know, these kinds of things are happening for students and outreach. It's really great.
Well, thanks, Tucker. It means a lot, and we hope to have you back with us, and maybe we go down some other paths together. We got to get you down here. We got live music going on, and we've been able to rally our community of support around some really new and innovative live music experiences. So anytime you want to take the trip back to your roots, you come find us.
There you go. It sounds good.
All right. On behalf of the Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation, thank you, everybody, for participating today, watching and listening in the future. Stay safe out there. Keep being creative. Keep playing. And we'll see everyone back real soon. Take care.